back in jail. All right, let's get back into it. Oh my goodness, we're about to do the trial of... Oh my goodness, this is gonna be crazy. That was definitely a speed run, wasn't it? But now, let's move on with the Old Bailey Defendant's Antechamber. I can't believe it's been 6 months since I was last allowed to work in court. And now here I am, back at the Old Bailey. Mr. Naruhodo. Good morning, Professor Hairbrain. I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense. The atmospheric pressure in here is off the charts. I never felt anything like it. It's crushing me. I feel it every time I'm here, that gravity. Well, this is Brutentire's court. Well, are you telling me it's fitted with some kind of device that can actually control air pressure? I think it's probably all in the mind. Yes, well, you won't let me down, will you, Mr. Naruhodo? I'm counting on you in today's trial to save my life. To save the secret of my super high voltage instantaneous kinesis machine from being made public. Yes, I understand. I know what I have to do. I have to establish that the explosion 2 days ago was nothing more than an unfortunate accident. By the way, chat, how's the audio? Is the audio a-okay with everybody? Even when we switch games and everything a-okay? Well, I'm sure there's nothing to worry about, really. Justice will prevail. My commiserations, Mr. Naruhodo. You appear to have been lumbered with a most tiresome case here. Oh, Mr. Sholmes, you're awake. I didn't expect to see you here. Ah, Itis. That was very mean, Reno, leaving me alone at home with Hurley. It took me at least an hour to wake him. Is it... Are you... Herlock Sholmes? Indeed, sir, I am he. Herlock Sholmes. I am he. Herlock Sholmes. Oh, I've heard all about your exploits even whilst living in Germany. Ah, yes, Rand's magazine is on sale in Germany too. This month's installment was sublime. Your deduction in the adventure of Silver Blaze was wonderful. Ah, yes, a memorable case indeed. It concerned a snake, I seem to recall. No, that was the speckled band. Well, thank you for coming. I do appreciate your support. I'm sorry to disappoint you, my dear fellow, but I'm afraid I can't stay. Oh. I have urgent business at Madame Suspel's. You mean your waxwork job? No, the waxwork abduction, of course. Madame has engaged my services. Ah, so you're trying to get to the bottom of that ransom note, aren't you? The week's wages depend on it, as does the safe return of the waxwork, naturally. As such, I intend to give him my undivided attention. Oh, well, never mind then. I understand. Of course, with my skills of observation and reasoning, resolving the matter will be as easy as proverbial pie. I shall return forthwith. For until I solve the case, I shall have no money to afford a pie of any description. Ooh, then you must absolutely give it your full attention, Hurley, or I'll shoot ya. Quite, Iris, quite, but life is riddled with irony, you know. Whenever I give something my full attention, I have a quite insatiable desire for a pie. One of the universe's intractable mysteries, you might say. Oh yes, quite, definitely, absolutely, I totally understand. Is someone a little... starstruck? I wish you the very best of luck, Professor Hairbrain. Oh, why, thank you. Oh, I love you. What? Before I depart, Mr. Naruhodo, a word in your ear, if you please. What's this about? As you have remarkably little grounding in science, I feel I ought to inform you. As compelling as the super high voltage instantaneous kinesis hypothesis may be, a practical implementation such as was attempted by the professor at the Great Exhibition is quite impossible. But the professor said the demonstration was a success. Yes, it would appear that he fervently believes it was. I read Professor Bunnybrain's paper about it too, Reno, and I have to say, I'm sure it can't be done. It could barely be done theoretically, let alone practically. So he's completely barking up the wrong tree? But how could an experiment that had no possibility of succeeding in fact succeed? That's contradictory. And it's that contradiction that will be at the heart of the trial, I've no doubt. What's that supposed to mean? Now, I must hurry along. I wish you the best of luck, dear fellow. See you later, Hurley. And I fade. Don't you wish you can fade away like that? I wish I can fade away like that. Well, it looks like you're on your own today, Runa, but chin up, you can do it. Oh, what about you, Iris? No, I'm afraid I can't help. I have something I need to do. I see. It's gonna be a big surprise for you when you find out what it is. That sounds ominous. Counsel for the defense and the defendant. Court is about to be in session. Make your way into the courtroom at once. We're on our way. Alright, let's see how this is gonna go. How the heck am I gonna prove this guy innocent? An experiment that the laws of science say can't possibly succeed. And a scientist who's convinced that it did. That's the riddle you have to unlock here, Ryunosuke. That's the key to this case. Well, I'm gonna fail badly. It's gonna be awesome. In here, we gotta prove science exists. And how do we prove that science exists? No, really, how do you prove that science exists? I'm kind of scared right now. Science exists, right? Science is real. In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session. We are sitting today for the public trial of Professor Albert Harebrain. I now call upon the counsels for the prosecution and defense to declare their willingness to proceed. The prosecution is ready. There. The defense is ready, my lord. I'm 6 months out of practice, and what's more... Oh no! The accident! The accident wasn't my fault! Susato, I'm sorry! That was cruel. Ugh. Is it just my imagination, or does the air in here feel even more oppressive than usual? So, I must say I recollect the victim of this case all too well. Mr. Odi Asman. Mr. Asman was well known as a financier, though that was merely a front for his diverse criminal activities. It was only a month ago that the man appeared in court prosecuted by you, Lord Von Zeeks. But the judge unanimously found him not guilty. Oh, wait. You're right, sorry, that was muted. For some reason, the sound was muted. Let me fix that for ya. There you go. Because every member of the jury had been bribed by the sound of it. These powerful London criminals are prepared to go to extreme lengths to keep their freedom. But 2 days ago, on 21st October, Mr. Asman met his end. The work of the Reaper, was it? If that is how your lordship would describe divine retribution. But the fact remains that Mr. Asman's death was a direct result of the actions of the accused, Professor Harebrain. Very well then. Now, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you have been selected at random to represent the will of the people. Are the 6 of you ready to fulfill your societal duty? Sorry, I'm reading too fast. I gotta slow down. I'm reading way too fast. I'm most gratified to have been selected to carry out this important civic duty, my lord. To have a man's fate in the palm of one's hand. Oh gosh, oh golly, it sends shivers down my spine. Science experiments, magic, conjuring tricks, courtroom trials, all are nothing more than performances. What's with the top hats? Any spirituous scholar that defiles the reputation of science deserves to hang. And what the heck is her? We have to listen to what's said on both sides of the fence and then settle on one. That's it, isn't it? Why was she eating corn like a typewriter? Isn't that the guy from the wax museum? Why does he have a gun? Wasn't like this in my day. Wasn't like this at all. That's the police killer Automo lookalike again. And he's as exhausted as ever, it seems. Is that actually a child? Now, as I'm sure you're all aware, the incident we are here to judge today tragically took place at the Great Exhibition shortly after its opening. Though the death toll could have been far worse, with the exception of the victim, no one was killed. Nevertheless, the dream of the science being exhibited rapidly turned into a nightmare for the spectators. A tragic turn of events, and as such the eyes of London, no, of the whole world will be on this trial. It is our duty to reach a swift and just conclusion, I feel. So, your opening statement please, Lord Von Zeeks? At the heart of this incident is technology never before demonstrated anywhere in the world. One of science's latest developments, I take it? The government is keen to capitalize on the Great Exhibition to improve Britain's technological advantage. The technology being demonstrated by the accused was described as super high voltage instantaneous kinesis. Good lord, Chip. It's designed to disassemble human subjects using extremely high voltage electricity and beam them instantly to another location where they are subsequently reassembled. Is such a thing even within the realms of possibility? Well, I don't believe it, that's for sure. Disassembling people with electricity, my goodness, how shocking. The whole idea is absurd. The hypothesis will never stand up to scrutiny. Sir, I believe you are a fellow of the Royal Society, are you not? An expert in your field. I am, and my word on the matter can be considered final. Instantaneous kinesis is poppycock. I can't believe you said poppy. So this expert and Mr. Sholmes are in agreement. It's impossible. What is the prosecution's view on the matter? The prosecution would assert that the accused instantaneous kinesis demonstration was a success. What? Wait, he believes it. Okay. So Von Zeeks thinks it is real. The professor's hypothesis is currently under investigation by the British government. If it is deemed to have merit, a substantial research grant will be made available. The accused made use of the invention built on his new hypothesis to take Mr. Asmund's life, in order to be the sole benefactor of the grant. But... This disastrous demonstration was no accident. It was carefully designed from the outset to end the life of the victim. Oh, successfully killed. It's a death machine, that's what he's trying to say. Thank you, Lord Von Zeeks, the prosecution's stance is clear. But you will now bring forth witnesses to substantiate your claims. Gladly, my lord. Oh. The cape is just on the floor now, like in the middle of the floor. Can someone pick that up? Bailiff, pick up my cape and show the first witnesses to the stand. He got caught in the torch. The cape is burning. Hey, look who it is. Witnesses, state your names and occupations for the court. Yes, sir. Tobias Gregson, Detective Inspector at Scotland Yard's Homicide Division. I was on duty at the demonstration on the day in question and in charge of the following investigation. Oh. Albert Harebrained, scientist. That was a lot of movement. You were born in England but have been carrying out research in Germany in recent years, correct? Yes, that's right. After graduating from university here in Britain, I went to work in Germany and made an amazing discovery, which is what brought me back. I had to demonstrate my incredible hypothesis at the Great Exhibition. What you demonstrated was incredible, alright? An incredible explosion. But the science was a success. The instantaneous kinesis worked. Everyone saw what they must have done. Yes, there was the terrible accident, but The demonstration of my hypothesis was a success. Well, that much is undeniable, as shown in this photograph taken by the forensics investigation team. Aww, he looks peaceful. This was taken inside the Crystal Tower, I take it? The centerpiece of the exhibition, no less. That's right, my lord. Seems the victim ran straight into it. Sorry. I got the runny nose today. But he doesn't, because he's dead. I see. Very well. Submit the photograph as evidence. Alright, so he looks peaceful. You can't be peaceful looking okay? He looks not peaceful. He looks awful. No, wow, look at that stab wound right there. Oh, Pixel is dead. As the courts heard, the victim of the incident was Mr. Odiasman. There have been a number of allegations made against the man, but putting them aside for the time being, he was the man who financed the research for the experiment and the demonstration itself. I see, so to summarize the situation, the defendant is accused of taking the life of the man who funded his work. Would that be correct? Exactly. But couldn't it be that the explosion was caused by some malfunction in the apparatus used for the demonstration? That's right, that must be it. My splendid machine. My poor splendid machine. You saw it yesterday, didn't ya? We can't even examine the wreckage thanks to the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act. What? The wreckage? The wreckage! The Wicked Witch of the East, bro! But that being the case, how can the facts be established? How can it possibly be determined whether this was an accident or a deliberate and malicious act? Extremely simple, my lord. I beg your pardon? Isn't that right, witness? Sorry, me? No, your neighbor. Yes, sir, it was murder, plain and simple. Anyone could state that with complete certainty. What? How could it be possible? How could he possibly think that? Thank you, Inspector. I think we had better proceed to formal testimony. You will explain to the court on what grounds you claim this experiment to have been a front for murder. Oh boy. Murder. That's always the thing. Not even the thievery, just the moiter. The corpse that went crashing through the Crystal Tower had a broken neck. I made a minor miscalculation in the angle of the beam projection, that's all. That was my mistake. But the post-mortem examination revealed another injury, a fatal wound. You love my voice, it's so calming. Aw, thank you, Bloop, I appreciate it. I mean, I have been told that a couple of times. I still don't believe it because I've been told my voice is annoying by 1, 2, 3 people. Those 3 people, they control my life. I'm joking though. Thank you though. That's what I'm trying to do, trying to make sure that my mic. So I changed up my mic placement and hopefully. So chat, before we continue on, I just want to make sure you're not hearing any hard S's, no plosives or anything. Everything just sounds fine on your end. Because I moved the mic placement, it's right in front of me now. So I'm trying to make sure that you get as much as my voice as possible, but without the extra noises, you know what I mean? I want to make sure that if you're hearing my voice, it's soothing, not cringy. But of course, do let me know. I just need a lot of water. Hopefully I don't run out of water too soon. But alright, let's continue on. But yeah, Bloop, you doing alright? There was a lesion in his chest where he'd clearly been stabbed by something sharp right in the heart. So the victim was killed before he went anywhere, and this fella's the only one who could have done it. Alright, so that's the end of the testimony. In extraordinary business, in addition to suffering a broken neck, the victim was stabbed in the heart? Information I would really like to have heard from someone other than the judge. I'm doing alright, thank you. The coroner says death would have been all but instant from a wound like that. You could say, in fact, that the victim was killed twice by the accused. Imagine dying twice. Danos did it, so Professor Hairbrain did too. No, that couldn't be further from the truth. I have here the experiment plan document that was submitted to the security team. The victim stood himself inside something called the birdcage, ready to be beamed instantly. To the second level of the Crystal Tower, about 25 yards away. The experiment did not go according to plan, however. Oh. As the machine was put into operation, there was a large explosion. The blast caused the beam transmitter to point higher than intended. Accordingly, the kinesis resulted in the birdcage materializing in mid-air, from where it subsequently fell, crashing through the glass of the Crystal Tower's large round window. My word, one assumes the victim's neck was broken upon impact with the tower then. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean for this to happen. The machine was just too powerful. But honestly, really, I swear, it was just an accident, a terrible accident. Unfortunately, that excuse can't save you. No, not considering the sharp murder weapon that pierced the victim's heart. Murder weapon? What are you saying? This is the autopsy report submitted by the coroner. The prosecution would like it entered into the court record. Your request is granted, counsel. Alright, so what is this sharp object? And why is there an actual child in there? I was there in person, you know. I saw the whole ludicrous performance. Let's see, so Udi Asman, he's British. That around 2:20 p.m. And it's just a sharp implement. They're not telling us what it was the sharp implement was. He just died from something sharp. Okay. And the only other person on the stage with Mr. Asman was that disgraceful excuse for a scientist. And really, by all accounts, it must have been him. Hard to think otherwise, really. Very well, counsel for the defense. Proceed with the cross-examination, please. Oh, yes, my lord. I need to focus here. It's been a while. Also, ow. That was 6 months of slap hidden up in my hands. Imagine holding up a slap for 6 months. Ouch. The corpse that went crashing through the Crystal Tower had a broken neck. Are you suggesting that's because he fell from a considerable height? Exactly, which highlights something else about this whole rum business. What's that? The fact that the instantaneous kinesis itself was a success. After the explosion, the cage with the fella inside suddenly appeared out of nowhere in midair. So although the experiment ended in disaster, the so-called instantaneous kinesis did actually occur. Remind us, Professor, what was the cause of the fatal disaster? I made a minor miscalculation in the angle of the beam projection, that's all. That was my mistake. Hold it! So the angle of projection is critical, is it? And you calculated it yourself, personally? Absolutely, the calculation is far too complicated for anyone but me to carry out. Only you got it wrong, didn't ya? Yes, that's right, that's the point. The calculation is so complicated, even I can make a mistake. Do people fall for that brazen confidence? I should try it. I took into account the subject's height and weight, the wind direction, the ambient temperature. I considered every possible variant, so I just don't understand how this could have happened. Obviously, then, you had to include the weight of the clothes Mr. Asman was wearing at the time, I suppose? Crackling comment! The answer should have been 3! So much for safety first, the 3 must be for safety third. So many mistakes. but the post-mortem examination revealed another injury, a fatal wound. Another fatal injury, you say? That doesn't make any sense. I didn't think I had to spell this out, but here we go. Just because there were 2 fatal wounds doesn't mean I'm saying the victim had 2 lives to lose, does it? 2 right. Obviously, at first, we thought the bloke had died due to his spine snapping in half as well. But you're saying that's not the case? You'll get your answer once I finish my fish and chips, if you don't keep butting in every few seconds. But we all know that's a bottomless bag. The victim plummeted 30 feet into a glass tower. It would be reasonable to assume that as the cause of death. Right, that's what we all thought. But it was a red herring, wasn't it? There was a lesion in his chest where he clearly been stabbed by something sharp right in the heart. Shot through the heart? The defense knew nothing of this crucial info. The prosecution received this report from the forensics investigation team only this morning. That was the first we knew of it as well. I can only apologize for the impossibility of informing the defense. Sarcastic and insincere? Thanks. So, what was the nature of this sharp object? Among the accused tools that were in use at the demonstration, one is of particular interest. Oh wait, the screwdriver. Yes. Ah yes, that would appear to be some kind of screwdriver, wouldn't it? Ah! There he is! My trusty little companion, Andrew! Andrew? Of course. Do you know each other already? He's one of my dear friends, like all my tools. I've named them all, you know. We're one big happy family. That doesn't make anything better, so it just proves that it's his, and that's what he got stabbed by, so that's the murder weapon. Andrew is my flathead screwdriver, of course. His brother Michael is a crosshead. Well, it would appear that your beloved Andrew has a red stain on his shank. That isn't... It's blood. Beyond all reasonable doubt. No. When you don't have friends, so you name your tools? What do you mean, member number 1 and member number 2? I do have friends. This one here is Tom. This here is Pickle. This here is Banana. Who names their friends? Right? Right? I have friends. I don't name the things behind me because I don't have friends. These 3 behind me don't have names. The long, sharp shape of this Andrew fellow is completely consistent with the victim's wound. What? Yeah, that's not helping him at all. Odar? The court will enter this friend of the defendant as evidence. It's Andrew. We got Andrew. So one of Professor Hairbrain's tools is the murder weapon. Great. That's gonna help a lot. So the victim was killed before he went anywhere, and this fella's the only one who could have done it. What grounds do you have for saying that? Do you really need to ask? There were only 2 people on that public experimentation stage in front of the whole crowd. The victim, Mr. Odiasman, and the accused, Professor Hairbrain. And we know for certain that before the experiment, the victim was alive. That's right, I saw him with my own eyes. Furthermore, following the explosion in Kinesis, nobody went anywhere near the body. In other words, only someone else on stage with the victim could possibly have done it. Oh. What's going on here? Excuse me. Professor Hairbrain, do you have some info that may be relevant here? Professor! Sorry. I was just calculating the optimum coefficient of the electrolysis to separate molecules in the human body. And the witness stand is the best place for that? It seemed as though you might have something to say about Inspector Gregson's last remark. Yes, that's right. Of course. He just said that nobody else could have done it, didn't he? Yeah, that's right. Who else could have stabbed the victim? Huh? I don't know, but there's no way that I could possibly have stabbed Mr. Asman as you say. Eh? Explain, please, Professor. Of course, this cold-hearted policeman may not be aware, I suppose. But humans are warm-blooded mammals with blood running continuously through their veins. I had heard. Then surely you see. If I plunged something the size of Andrew into the man's chest, the whole stage would have been a bloodbath. No, a blood swimming pool. But thousands of Londoners were watching me at the time. And yet not one of them claims to have seen a swimming pool of blood. Well, no, I suppose not. You see, not one. True, I didn't see anything like that. Well done, Professor, that was a great counter-argument. My job, but still, he did my work for me. Imagine having your work done for you. Twitch, can you play this game for me instead? Can Twitch play Phoenix Wright instead? That'd be cool to see. Twitch plays Phoenix Wright. I want to know if you can all handle one case together. If I just know how to do it, that'll be so friggin' fun. Oh, here comes the hallowed chalice. He poured it. Pray forgive the discourtesy if I savor a drop from my hallowed chalice to accompany my old friend's abducting. The game can play the game for me. Oh yeah, you're right. There's autoplay. Yeah, story mode. There we go. Everything will be answered for me. So wait, why am I playing this game if I can just watch the game myself? Twitch plays Ace Attorney will be a nightmare. Oh, yes, it would be, but it would be funny, though. Oh, picking the evidence as well. Oh, goodness. It's like, at this point, if Twitch plays Phoenix Wright, they will need infinite lives, because imagining getting 5 evidences wrong, then restarting everything again. There needs to be a hack there needs to be a cheat that allows infinite lives. Everyone organizes to only ever present the badge. Phoenix Wright, this is your last evidence. What can you do? This is your chance, Phoenix Wright, to save the world. Badge. Here's to you, Albert. Oh, you're too kind, Barrick, but I'm not really a patch on you. Ugh. No, you're not. No? You've neglected to mention one crucial possibility. I have? A particular situation in which very little bleeding would result from a stab wound. Of course. Inspector, enlighten the court, please. Yes, sir. Where are they going with this? Very well. You will amend your formal testimony now, Inspector Gregson. The weapon the victim was stabbed with must have been left in his body while he was beamed through the air. No, it wasn't. There's proof right here. Where is the weapon? I see no weapon.
Objection.
Wait, what? Wait, it wasn't in there. Wait. Wait, what? What do you mean it's not that? What? It's not in the picture. We found the screwdriver at the freaking scene. How did I get that one wrong? It did not get beamed through the air. So what? Do I have to present the screwdriver? Are you joking me? So they don't want the picture. They want the screwdriver. Ooh. Nope, the screwdriver doesn't work either. Are you joking me? That's a trap. That was a trap right there then. That's a flippin' trap. Fine, I'll just press it. Why would you think that, Inspector? With any wound, it's only when you pull the weapon out that profuse bleeding occurs. Whilst it's still lodged in the body, it acts as a stopper of sorts, for want of a better word. I see. You don't need a medical degree to be aware of this fact. It's common knowledge for any investigator. Where's Usato-san when you need her? If you ask me, this bloke masked what he was doing from view with his body before stabbing Asmon in the chest. Then he beamed the victim off the stage with his fanciest device, the screwdriver still where he planted it. I would never do such a thing. Not to my precious tools. I would never use them for such dirty work. You only use tools for their intended purpose. That's common knowledge for any scientist. The fact remains, the lack of blood at the scene can easily be explained, as the prosecution has demonstrated. So that's all the testimony I have to work with. I had no idea the victim had been stabbed. That changes everything. Did Von Zieks keep that to himself until now on purpose to gain the advantage? Oh well, I suppose all I can do is press these witnesses for as much new info as possible. I don't know what's going on. I can't read today. How much water do I need? Alright, let's go back to that last statement. He must have been left in his body, are you sure? I have two things right here I could easily present, but somehow that won't work. That's the insane thing about it. Let's see, a sharp implement. That pierced the heart, inflicted by sharp implement, but it must have been left in his body? Are you sure? I tried these two. They don't work. That's the insane thing about it. And what do I use? The report? Okay, that doesn't work either. Am I really... Okay, it might not be that statement then. It might be a different statement. But the thing is, when something's amended, it makes you think that you should use it here. Let's see. There was a lesion in his chest. Fatal wound. Minor miscalculation. Let's see. A lesion in his chest where he clearly been stabbed by something sharp right in the heart. But the thing is, it's not there, so I'm gonna try presenting it here. Okay, never mind. I'm just really confused right now then. What the heck? Seriously, what is going on? Did you examine screwdriver? Oh my goodness, if I have to examine the screwdriver and find out what it really... That's a nice looking screwdriver, by the way. I like it. This is blood. Mr. Asmon's, no doubt. This is the problem with looking at murder weapons. Oh wow, that's a good thing to know. I've seen this unusually shaped handle before. It's the same screwdriver that was lodged in the grill on the floor of the kinesis machine, which could be important information, so I should... Oh my goodness. It had to be updated first. Oh my goodness. Examine everything. That's my mistake right there. Now it worked. Oh my goodness, the screwdriver now works. You say that while the weapon remains in the body, there's very little bleeding. Is that unequivocal? Look, there was no blood on the experimentation stage, even though that's where the fellow was stabbed. The only explanation for that is that if the screwdriver was still in his body, stopping any heavy bleeding. It's common medical knowledge, my learned friend, even on your side of the world. Yes, but about the screwdriver. The thing is, we actually saw it at the scene ourselves, on the experimentation stage. What? It was on the floor by the wreckage of the machine, poking through a metal grill. I went to pick it up, but the detective here stopped me. Isn't that right, Inspector Gregson? Well, now you come to mention it, yes. Inspector, are we to understand that you permitted the defense counsel to investigate? That you contravened the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act? No, not at all. I wouldn't do that. I just let him look, nothing more. I was very clear he wasn't to touch a thing. Yes, that's true. The screwdriver was in plain sight on the stage. But it shouldn't have been, should it? What are you getting at? If this tool has still been in the victim's body when the victim was beamed away by the machine, then it shouldn't have been still on the stage. Ugh. That's right. It should have been beamed across to the Crystal Tower along with Mr. Asman, and been found still lodged in his chest. Ugh. Oh! He's angry. His fish and chips all over the floor. Ordar, how do you explain this, Inspector? I don't. It looks as though everything that the victim had on his person moved with him when he was beamed. If the screwdriver was still in his chest when the instantaneous kinesis occurred, obviously that should have been beamed to the destination as well. This is a strange situation. Even though people are saying that this instantaneous kinesis is a scientific impossibility, we're still basing arguments on the assumption that it did actually take place. Alright, time to tighten the screws here. I get it. My lord, if the prosecution is unable to explain this inconsistency in its argument, we can only conclude that the testimony given in support cannot be relied upon. Lord Von Zieks is stumped. Oh. They gave that. Oh, he has a voice line. That was a big old hold it. Do you have something to say, witness? Yes, I knew it. It bears out. The equations hold. Mr. Naruhodo, don't worry. About what? Without delving into the details, there is no inconsistency. What? Even if Andrew had been lodged in Mr. Asman's chest, my trusty tool wouldn't have moved. Andrew remaining on the stage is consistent with my calculations. Is this guy serious? What? What? He is making this worse, and somebody's dead. It would seem your illusions have been shattered. He did all that for a joke. He really just hurt somebody for a joke. Clearly, we should hear the accused's explanation. Or should I say, this brilliant scientist's explanation. Just when I found an inconsistency in the prosecution's argument. Scientist. Very well, the defendant will testify again. Provide us with the scientific explanation as to why the inconsistency asserted by the defense fails to hold. In the name of Apollo Justice, I will, my lord. Who's Apollo Justice? Do I know the guy? I don't know that guy. Who knows that guy? Alright. To be clear, I'm still at the stage of gathering data in my research. My hypothesis states the kinesis cannot transport metal though, hence the metal weapon would have stayed put. In other words, the point just raised by Mr. Naruhodo isn't an inconsistency at all. Mr. Asman was the patron of my research. Without him, my work wouldn't have been possible. Now I have a duty to protect the incredible machine that we built together. And screw yourself over? Okay. So, he screwed us. So, the thrust of your testimony, Professor, is that based upon his hypothesis, metal objects cannot be moved by this method of instantaneous kinesis. In other words, since the screwdriver is made of metal, even if it remained lodged in the chest, its subsequent discovery on the stage despite the victim being found elsewhere is not an inconsistency. And therefore, Professor Albert Hairbrain could still have been the killer. My great hypothesis holds, you see. But wait, his monocle? Doesn't it have metal? I would say his buckles, but no, the buckles are wood. Imagine having wooden buckles. I like this part of the monocle. The little pokey thing that you can poke your cheek with. The cheeky part. Oh wait, this was found on the floor too, this crossbow, right? This was found elsewhere. Maybe this could have been in play. We had to make the cage used to contain the subject from wood for that very reason. I was not addressing you, witness. Professor Hairbrain. Yes? Whose side are you on here? The side of science, my boy. I don't take sides, Mr. Naruhodo. No. My only interest lies in upholding my hypothesis. I'm a scientist, after all. Oh yes, Evie, I know it was on the ground. The way I was thinking it was wrong. I just thought like, oh, maybe it stayed. No, wait. It was found on the ground. Somebody did leave that there, but I still want to know what's up with that crossbow. Is he working for us or against us? Or among us? It's very hard to tell. Let's see how you cross-examine this testimony, my Nipponese friend. Yes, fire away, Mr. Naruhodo. Well, now that we know the monocle is made out of metal, the M in monocle is metal. To be clear, I'm still at the stage of gathering data in my research. And yet your retort to my argument wasn't lacking in confidence in any way. No scientist can find the truth without first finding self-belief. Those were the words of a certain scientist I hold in the very highest esteem. But you realize that disproving my argument puts you in a very precarious position, don't you? No scientist should strive to protect himself more than he strives to protect the truth. More words of the same great scientist, you know. Words that are causing me a lot of trouble. Who is this scientist? I'm afraid I couldn't tell you, Mr. Naruhodo. But as soon as I remember the magnificent genius's name, you'll be the first to know. Albert Einstein. It might be worth keeping the names of your idols to mind. You're wasting your breath, my learned friend. This scatterbrain even forgets my name at times. So Lord Van Zieks really did have a friend once, but I didn't notice hell freezing over. My hypothesis states that kinesis cannot transport metal, though, hence the metal weapon would have stayed put. Your hypothesis states it? So this isn't proven then? No, of course not. It's merely a hypothesis, but a good one based upon thousands of calculations. But it is widely known that metals can be decomposed by electrolysis. Yes, of course, so I am right. My hypothesis is clearly correct. What is it about incriminating himself that makes this man so happy? It's the whole reason that the birdcage is made of wood, you see? Sorry, the birdcage? Yes, that's what I call the sea obtuse cage in which Mr. Asman was placed for the kinesis. Ah, the jail cell in which the victim was detained. It does indeed seem to be made of a timber of some sort. I'll thank you not to refer it as an instrument of incarceration, your lordship. In short, any weapon lodged in the victim when he was beamed away by instantaneous kinesis would have been left behind on the stage if it was made of metal, correct? Yes, that's it. Yes. It all fits perfectly with the mathematical method. But the ultimate conclusion then is that the defendant alone had the opportunity to inflict this fatal injury on the victim, is it not? Huh. Ah, indeed, sir. Someone beam me out of this nightmare. In other words, the point just raised by Mr. Naruhodo isn't an inconsistency at all.
Hold it!
Can't read. You seem to be pleased by that. Yes, another example of my hypothesis holding true. But I sense some sarcasm, Mr. Naruhodo. Are you not pleased? No. He says it, he tells him as he sees it. I knew it. At the end of the day, I'm the one responsible for Mr. Asman losing his life. The advancement of science is no excuse, I know that. No, you're quite right. Tell the court, did you have a close relationship with Mr. Asman? Oh, well, no, not really. I mean, I only met him 2 or 3 times. And we only ever discussed my hypothesis and the project and the research grant, of course. We talked about the money. Mr. Asman was the patron of my research. Without him, my work wouldn't have been possible. How did you come to know Mr. Asman in the first place? That little booklet. A year ago now, a small provincial science journal published a little paper about my work. That's a scientific journal? Good gracious, I should need new spectacles. I might have had an extraordinary hypothesis and great promise, but at the time I had no money. I had to eat tiny little meals at a tiny little cafe and drink watered down water out of a tiny little glass. How do you water down water? Well, Mr. Asman read the paper and came to visit me at my tiny little laboratory. And offered you money to help fund your work? Exactly, that's exactly what happened. I handled the theoretical side of things and Mr. Asman provided me with an engineer for the practical. And the three of us produced that fantastic machine together. The machine that you brought to the great exhibition to demonstrate. We had to apply it to the government for some sort of inspection to be allowed to exhibit, I think. I didn't understand all that side of things. Mr. Asman took care of all of it. He was a wonderful man, really. I owe him everything. He died. Now I have a duty to protect the incredible machine that we built together. When you say that you built the machine together, does that mean you were involved in its construction? Yes. Well, not exactly. I'm not good with the practical side of machines myself, so the physical construction was done by an engineer. Little remains of your creation now, though. Following the explosion, repair will no doubt be impossible. Yes, I realize that, but still. If someone were to gather all the broken parts, they could discover the secrets of my hypothesis. But Mr. Asman and I toiled over that machine for so long. We put our hearts and souls in it. I have to protect our work. So what's left of the machine must be kept safe. That's only fair, because what happened was an accident. That's the extent of the testimony then. Thank goodness for that. I don't want him doing any more damage. He's already basically proven that he could have been the culprit. But it seems as though all he really cares about is defending his hypothesis. Still, I wonder, what if his hypothesis is just fundamentally flawed? Let's see, because I think I have a... There we go, the metal weapon would have stayed put. I'm gonna save here, just in case. I have an idea. Mostly because, you know, this is the only thing I got so far. Metal. Let's present it.
Objection.
Hey. Professor Hairbrain, you say that according to your hypothesis, nothing made of metal can be beamed by instantaneous kinesis using the machine you made, is that right? Yes, that's right. Spot on, exactly correct. In that case, I'd ask you to have a look at this photograph that was taken at the scene. In particular, I'd like you to pay attention to the victim's face. The green! You can clearly see that Mr. Asman is green-haired. He's wearing a pair of spectacles with a metal rim. What? Metal? No, metal can't... That's not... Metal? No! We've already established that the proposed murder weapon, the screwdriver, was found on the stage. However, if your hypothesis correctly predicted that outcome, it should also have predicted that the metal rimmed spectacles will be found in the same place. Oh, my hypothesis, my hypothesis! Professor Hairbrain, this isn't easy for me to say, but your hypothesis is clearly flawed. Ah! He's touching his hairbrain. Order! Counsel, what is the implication of this? If on the day in question the alleged instantaneously kinesis never actually took place, then it's entirely possible that the victim was killed somewhere other than the stage. And in that case, someone other than the defendant could have been the culprit. But my hypothesis is sound. I proved it that day. The experiment was a success. The experiment was proof of all my work. If I could say something here in my capacity as a fellow of the Royal Society. Yes, juror number 4, go ahead. As a man of science, there's one thing I simply cannot abide. And that's a fraud who pretends to be a fellow man of science. What? Wait, great Scott! Are you suggesting my science is suspect, is sus? It's just been disproved, hasn't it? In front of all of us. In other words, the whole demonstration was a complete nonsense from start to finish. Believe me, my fellow jurors, when I tell you that this man is a heel, a bounder, and a fraud. I say the wreckage of that machine should be stripped down and thoroughly examined. No, never. That machine is the essence of my entire hypothesis. It's protected by the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act. What the devil's that blasted act all about, eh? Who made it such a daft rule? I don't like the way this seems to be going. What's the best way for me to help the professor? Yeah, why not?
Objection!
Professor Harebrain has yet to perfect his invention. That would seem to be the case, yes. But even so what? Going to such trouble and expense to create a fake machine to display in public, he would have absolutely no reason to do such a thing.
Objection!
He had an obvious reason to do exactly that. For the research grant money. If the government was foolish enough to have deemed the man ridiculous and the notion plausible, he and his conspirators would have received a handsome sum indeed. Conspirators? What would be the value of such a grant? 10 pounds? You're an order of magnitude out, madam. 500 pounds a year. Oh, you could live handsome on that much for years. I can buy corn. The society's noticed an increase in bogus public demonstrations in the field of science recently, and plenty of scientists arguing with each other to get the largest slice of the funding cake. People's greed is plenty motive enough for murder, I assure ya. 500 pounds a year? I can barely live on 500 a month. No, I haven't deceived anyone, least of all the government. My hypothesis is sound, the science is sound. Please, you must believe me.
Objection!
No matter how unbelievable this hypothesis may seem to you, ladies and gentlemen, the fact remains that the victim was transported instantly to the Crystal Tower. Which means that the experiment was a success. Barrack. And therefore, the only person who could possibly have committed this murder is the accused. Barrack. Where is this heading? I have no idea. My lord, if I may. Yes, Lord Von Zieks? The prosecution would like to summon new witnesses to the stand. New witnesses? What would be the nature of their involvement? They were spectators of the demonstration at the exhibition, who were occupying special seats. Eyewitnesses? Very well. The court grants the prosecution's request. I should very much like to hear from eyewitnesses to the incident. Oop, my mistake. The prosecution's stance is clear. This experiment was no pastiche. The accused killed the financier victim there on the public stage, before the very eyes of the spectators. Now, my learned friend. Oh, yes? It's time for you to make your own stance clear. There's clearly a flaw in the professor's hypothesis. I can definitely see that. But where does that leave me? We shall take a short recess now, during which time the prosecution will prepare its new witnesses to take the stand. As you wish, my lord. Good, in that case, court is adjourned for 20 minutes. To be continued. Now. I gotta say, that was a very short segment. I thought it'd be like maybe 2.5 hours before we get a break. But no, they're like, we're gonna take a break after an hour. Why not? That's crazy. The Old Bailey, the case continues. What a spoiler. Mr. Naruhodo, what on earth were you playing at just now? Or rather, what on earth were you playing at all along? My hypothesis! My amazing hypothesis! You've been picking holes in it from the start. Ah, sorry about that. But you promised me. You said you proved that dreaded explosion was an accident, not murder. You said you keep my precious invention from falling into anyone else's hands. But all you've done so far is try to undermine me. Yes, I didn't make you a promise, you're right. I said that I believe in you and fight for your freedom to the very end. But I also told you I was no scientist. I don't understand your hypothesis. The fact is, there's an undeniable flaw in your logic, isn't there? But if I just run through some equations... Yes, you see, it's because my work is incomplete. Perhaps it is, nevertheless, a man died as a consequence, didn't he? Oh. Oh no! You're right. You're so right. It's all my fault. And I have no right to blame you for my failures. I'm a disaster. Not just as a scientist, but as a human being. Well, that might be a little over the top. And while we're on the subject, what about Barrick? He's being awful. Blaming his old university friend to be a murderer, you mean? He's a disaster, not just as a prosecutor, but as a human being. Oh, but no, wait. He's the Reaper, isn't he? Perhaps he's not classified as Homo sapiens anymore? Glad that's cleared up. Wow, why is my nose so itchy? Can I double check something with you? Guess what? The machine and demonstration you prepared. They were based entirely on your hypothesis, I presume. There was no trickery involved. I drew the plans for the machine with my very own hands. Every line was painstakingly drawn with the firm belief that science is the only future. So yes, it's true that my hypothesis hasn't reached maturity yet. But please, Mr. Naruhodo, you must believe in it. Alright, Professor. I understand. Counsel? Defendant? The prosecution's witnesses are ready to take the stand. Court is about to be in session again. Make your way into the courtroom, please. It all hinges on that demonstration. If the professor's hypothesis is sound as he claims, it leaves him as the only person who could possibly have killed the victim. But on the other hand, Mr. Sholmes was adamant. A practical implementation such as was attempted by the professor at the Great Exhibition is quite impossible. So really, what should I be trying to prove here? What is going on here? But every time I try to say something, Hairbrain's like, by the way, you're wrong. Take this ratio plus L. Now we're back. In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby reconvene the proceedings of the court. Counsels for the defense and prosecution, are you ready for the new witnesses to testify? The prosecution is ready, my lord. As is the defense, my lord. So, Lord Von Zieks, I believe these next witnesses saw the demonstration on the day in question with their own eyes. Indeed, they did. And as luck would have it, one of them is a police detective. So the testimony we are about to hear can be considered highly reliable. Don't tell me Gina's gonna be there. Perfect, a detective of all people. The prosecution's stance remains unchanged. Though it ended in tragedy, the demonstration on the day in question was scientifically sound. And consequently, the sole person with the opportunity to have committed this act of murder is the only other individual to have been present on the stage at the time, the accused. Thank you, counsel. The prosecution's position is clear. So, bring forth your witnesses now. Bailiff, show the witnesses in. The witnesses whose proximity to the incident on the day in question will clarify the truth unequivocally. Oh. Gina! So that's the detective. Also, who the heck's that short person? Hey, Alex Gamer, how you doing? Welcome to the stream. Witnesses, state your names and occupations for the court to hear. My name is Balthazar Loon? Wait, is this not a freaking hot air balloon? I am the impresario of all the hot air balloons in vicinity of the experimental stage. My name is Wilhelm Gottfried Sigismund Olmstein. I have come to see the great exhibitions all the way from my home in Bohemia. Oh, that's nice. I'm very rich. Thanks for that. Inspector Gina Lestrade, Scotland Yard. I'm a great detective, even Erlock Sholmes agrees. I was on security duty at the exhibition and I got it to go up in one of them balloons. It was amazing. Gina, again. But she did mention that she's seen the disaster from up in a balloon actually, didn't she? And she clearly loved every minute of it. There were 3 balloons flying near the public... Whew. There were 3 balloons flying near the public wow. Hold on a second. I'm like flubbing up my words right now. What is going on? Can I just speak clearly? You gotta do these mouth exercises, no matter how silly they are. Alright, let me try this again. There were 3 balloons flying near the public air... My... Why can I read today? I'm about to run out of water. Yeah, what's going on with me today? Why can't I read? Ah! Well, that's gonna help. That's gonna help a lot. Oh, is there hair in my mouth too? What? Nothing's going right today. There were 3 balloons flying near the public air... There were 3 balloons flying near the public air... There were 3 balloons flying near the public experimentation stage when the incident occurred. 2 of these witnesses were in one such balloon at the time and saw events unfold from the skies above. You make it sound like they were in the clouds. It was only an altitude of circa 60 feet, very low. Well, you can't see nothing if you fly too high, can ya? 60 feet, about 18 meters then. Do you think there were 3 balloons? I think there might have been 3 balloons right there. Thank you for your introductions. Now you will give your formal testimony for the court. Kindly describe exactly what you witnessed, especially those of you who had a vantage point above the stage. There we go, I can read. Happy now? Do we gotta start on the rich kid with the bandaged head? It wasn't an incidente terrible. I am only grateful that my balloons were not damaged. There's this huge bang from the stage and then the next second another bang in the sky above us, besides us. And from amidst the smoke, a cage appeared out of nowhere. The cage, it fell from the sky like a stone and crashed into the tower. I didn't get a good look inside the cage, but no one went near it after it crashed into the tower. 3 balloons. A most extraordinary collective account, I must say. Can I just clarify something? There's a detail in the witness's testimony that I've not heard any mention of until now. Specifically, that there were 2 explosions? More precisely, 2 explosions in 2 separate places, yes. When the demonstration began, the balloon carrying the 2 witnesses was around. Here, there were other balloons in the air nearby at the time, carrying other passengers as well, to be clear. Then, as power was supplied to the machine for the demonstration, the first explosion occurred. The so-called birdcage that contained the victim disappeared from the stage, and a moment later, the second explosion occurred directly adjacent to the balloon carrying the witnesses. The birdcage appeared at the site of the explosion, subsequently to plummet down into the tower. I was very surprised. Suddenly a cage appeared before my eyes with a person inside. The blast was so hot, but I didn't want to miss a thing, so I kept my eyes wide. Imagine the camera pans up, there's like 15 balloons in the air. I still have lots of money. Thanks for that. I have no money. Can I get some money from this rich kid? Precisely, who is this curious infant? I'm told he is a young, noble Bohemian royalty. Apparently, he disguised himself in order to steal unnoticed into the great exhibition. Yeah, I'm here in London on a sightseeing trip with my elementary school. We will have the benefit of a child's point of view in the testimony. Do we really need that? When I remove my mask, this is what I look like. Ah, yes, I see a delightful face, I'm sure. Yeah, everyone says so. Great disguise, then. The point is, the testimony of these witnesses further substantiates the facts for the court. Namely, that despite ending in an explosion, instantaneous kinesis was successfully demonstrated. And furthermore, that until the arrival of the police, no one approached the crystal tower where the victim fell. Therefore, only the accused, who was with Mr. Asman on the stage, could possibly have committed the murder. Yes, thank you, counsel. The prosecution's view on the matter are quite clear. So, the defense's cross-examination now, please? Yes, my lord? I still have lots of money. This is what my face looks like. I will be found out and they will take me away because I am rich kid. I'm rich. Oops. It was an incident terrible. I am only grateful that my balloons were not damaged. There were 3 balloons flying above the experimentation stage at the time, I understand. Oh, so I got it that time. See, all 3 of them, I bellissimi bambini. They were very popular, signor. Some people will pay £10 for one ride. £10? That's more than my annual stipend. 20 £20 a month. That is my pocket money. Royals have all the luck. I got up there for free, I did. Played the old I work for Her Majesty's police card, you know? Detectives have all the luck. If they're so popular, why would you only be operating such a small number of balloons, though? Because if I have too many in the skies, they could crash into each other. The operators for the balloons were decided by lots, with each operator manning a particular area. See, and the zone above public experimentation stage is the most profitable. The other impresarios, they hate me. Thank you, witness. I think the court has a clear picture of the arrangements for balloon rides at the exhibition. Perhaps we can hear more about what you actually witnessed of the incident. Right, I can fill you in there, my lord. My name is Gina. I am a bambina. There's this huge bang from the stage, and then the next second another bang in the sky beside us. So you actually saw the accident happen from up in the air? Yep. Isn't it amazing what the detectives get to do, eh? I'm telling you, Otto, being a lawyer's a mug game. You should join the force and we can go all flying together. You know me so well. Yes, well, anyway, could you tell us exactly what you saw, do you think? Everything. We saw everything, because we were up above it all. That dodgy cove climbing into the cage and that dodgy professor pulling all them levers. And that's when it happened. That's when there was that massive bang and the cage disappeared, just like that. You were describing the moment the subject's body was decomposed by the electricity, I believe. I didn't know what to make of it. But then there was another bang right in my ear. I looked around and there was a huge great fireball right next to us in the sky. And there was nothing there before. Uh-oh. He's about to buy her entire career. Excuse me. Give me your animal crackers. Master Gods, does your memory of the day differ? My teacher at elementary school said that when you meet someone for the first time, you should always use their full name. Yes, what was it again? Wilhelm Gottfried Sigismund Obstein. Just the 4 names then? The point is, do you have something to say? Something to add in response to Detective Gina Lestrade's last remark, perhaps? Oh, get it right, Otto. It's Inspector Lestrade. Why does everyone have a problem with how I address him at the moment? That isn't not what I saw. Oh? Yeah, there was a second explosion. It was right beside our balloons. That is true. But I'm sure... Which is what I said, ain't it? 1 minute there was nothing there, the next a massive explosion. My teacher at elementary school said when someone else is speaking, if you are rude enough to interrupt, you will have the most awful life imaginable. Are all Bohemians brought up to be so full of joy? Balloon me, please. This guy's about to be really rich. Wait, the balloons also respawn. He has infinite balloons. Just before the second explosion happened next to our balloon, I clearly witnessed a green balloon flying in the sky. A green balloon. Wait, green? Green, 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 green. Huh? You what? I never saw nothing like that. Well, I did. I saw it, and you can't say I didn't. I will complain to the council. I will scream and cry. My testimony is the truth. I am Bohemian Prince. You cannot say it's a lie. That is not allowed. Playing the bleeding royalty card, are you? Typical. Says the orphan who likes to remind people she works for Her Majesty's police. In that case, young man, I must ask you to amend your formal testimony. In the interest of cordial national relations between Great Britain and Bohemia. It was not the sky that exploded. It was the green balloons that was next to ours at the time. Oh boy, I love balloons. Does anybody here like balloons? If you like balloons, raise your hand. Also, let me fix my camera. There we go. Now it just focuses on me a little bit more. The camera's a bit too high up right there. All right. It has to be this thing, right? Objection. What do you mean? What do you mean? I'd just rather suck the helium out of balloons and just have fun with that, though. I'm just a helium sucker. There's nothing else to check around here. Except the back, which we already examined. It's nothing else. But this green has to play somewhere, doesn't it? Hold it! A green balloon, you say? Are you sure about that? Of course I am sure. I'm a proud Bohemian Prince. All these questions are making me boring. I think you mean bored. Ah, English is very annoying. The language of my countrymen is far superior. Ragazzo, it's very wrong to lie. Lie? Flying balloons never explode. For the same reason the planets never explode. It is logical. Please tell me that doesn't mean logical. If you insult me, you insult all of Bohemia. My die. I will have the army come and shoot all your stupid balloons out the sky. All of them. Also, I like your balloon, please. Here you are, your highness. Interesting. Either way, tell us what you saw, Inspector Lestrade. That's what I had to hear. The army, not the Bohemian army. I didn't get a good look inside the cage, but no one went near it after it crashed into the tower. Was it you who gave the order to keep people away? Use your head, Otto. How could it have been me? I was up in a balloon, weren't I? Yeah, the stream did not end. I mean, does it look like I would end in the middle of a thing? Like, okay, so I just talked. Bye! I mean, if I were gonna end, I'd do it right now. Like, right now. Like, right now. Like, where's the power switch? I gotta turn everything off now. Right. So, because I weren't available, it was the boss who had to leg it over there. He was getting shoved and kicked all over by the panicking spectators as he tried to seal off the scene. It was a real sight to behold, I can tell ya. Amazing. Poor Inspector Gregson. So anyway, I couldn't see the cage that well because of all the smoke. And I didn't really want to see it, to be honest. I was scared out of me wits. Keep it together, Inspector. The prosecution really is asserting that the demonstration was genuine. But what if it was actually some kind of switch around trick instead? That would mean that the victim was never actually on the stage in the first place. The two explosions would have thrown everyone into a panic, and for sure. I think I need to find out more about what exactly people saw at the time. Let's see. Because when he talked about the whole green balloon thing, it just made me believe this green cloth thing. I presented it, nothing happened. So what else could I use though? Because usually this would have been it right here. And it's not flashing, so it's not like this part isn't important. So maybe it's not this though. It crashed. Didn't get a good look, but no one went near it after it crashed into the tower. Didn't get a good look inside the cage, but no one went in it. Not even the photographer who took the photo though, but just confused right now. Super confused. Let's see, metal screwdriver, crossbow, experiment sketch. Don't think any of that would help, I guess. Cage, it fell from the sky. It was a green balloon that was ours at the time. It was a green balloon. A green balloon. Like, could I show the sketch and maybe that could work? But I doubt that's gonna work. So, I don't know. Right now, I thought the green thing that I have in my inventory would work. I thought that the green cloth would work. Apparently, that won't work. I tried it before, it did not work. Maybe something on the newspaper? Maybe something about Crystal Towers? Maybe something about a lost cat? Don't think that would work? No.
Objection.
Well, I tried. I thought I can use the sketch and be like, there's two balloons there. Maybe it did blow up. Ooh. Maybe I should check it. I don't know. I've been checking this thing. Like, even on the sides, there's only like the back I can examine. There's nothing on the front to examine. So right now I am kind of stuck. Or maybe I can use this right here because, you know what? I'll try that then. You know what? If nobody was near it after it crashed into the tower, explain the photo. Okay, never mind. That did not work either. Okay, I'm stuck again. What the heck? Just when I thought the one that I thought would work, it doesn't work. This does not work. Scorch marks. No one went near it after the tower. It was not this guy that exploded. It was a green balloon that was next to ours. Yet the stuff that I'm using right now is not working. I'm stuck. I'm kind of stuck right now. Green balloon. The cage fell from the sky like a stone and crashed into the crystal tower. That it did. He didn't get a good look inside the cage, but no one went near it after it crashed into the tower. The balloon being damaged? Oh wait, are you talking about the first one here? That your balloons were not damaged? Should I present it here?
Objection.
Anyway, Miss Luna, in your testimony, you said that all three of the balloons you had operating at the time were undamaged. See, that is correct. If they had been caught in the explosions, it would have been terrible? I wonder if you might know what this is. Ah, I think it may be. See, parts of a balloon, a burnt piece of the fabric of the envelope. Sorry, the envelope? Pardon, that is a large round part of the balloon which becomes filled with hot air. It is made from very thick fabric lined with rubber. You do not want it to rip when you are in the sky. Just as I thought. This piece of cloth was found near the experimentation stage. In other words, as Master Gods testified, a green balloon did indeed explode that day. If all the balloons in the sky above the experimentation stage belong to you, Mr. Lune, then your statement that they were all undamaged clearly contradicts the evidence. Oh! Oh no, his balloons popped. If a balloon exploded that day, why didn't the man say so? Maybe everyone on board was killed. Oh no, I haven't just spent 10 whole pounds for the experience. How awful. Seems to me like those things crash 50% of the time anyway.
Objection!
Wow. The instantaneous kinesis did occur, but after the explosion on the stage, the point of materialization shifted to a location occupied by a balloon, causing the balloon to explode? Are you telling me more people died that day? An unfortunate traffic accident, as it were, but it changes nothing about the pertinent facts. This I cannot accept. Why not, Mr. Lune? You're suggesting that I am a liar. That person's died in a balloon incidente. There's no need to get fired up, Mr. Lune. The victim was the sole fatality that day. That's right, and I prove it. Balthazar Lune is not a liar. There was no such balloon in the sky. It is non-possible. You're saying it's impossible? Why? This court has more important matters to discuss than the number of balloons that were operating that day. Aye.
Objection!
Aye. But we can't ignore the fact that nobody appears to have known anything about this other balloon until now. My lord, the defense calls for further testimony from Mr. Lune. Oh wait. I'm an idiot. It's Mr. Loon. I keep saying Lune, but his name is Balthazar Loon. Balloon. I keep saying Lune, but there's no accent in the E, but I like saying Lune, but it's Balthazar Loon. Balloon. I just got the name. I concur, there's clearly more to the truth than meets the eye. Transformers? It's imperative that we clear up the issue of this phantom balloon, I feel. Witness, you will give supplementary testimony about the balloons you were operating at the exhibition. Ah, grazie, my lord. Grazie. Balloon. I like that. Mr. Loon's balloons. As I said, Balthazar Loon is no liar. Every balloon I had in the sky landed safely. All 3 of my balloons were carrying passengers. If they fell to the ground in an explosion, what a catastrophe. But you can't get away from the fact that a burnt up bit of cloth was found at the scene, can you? The coppers at the yard reckon it was probably some debris thrown from the explosion on the stage. The stupido ragazzo's mistaken. My balloons have the red and blue zigzag stripes anyway. That is true. So your assertion is that the balloon this child saw was not one belonging to you. Si, exactamente. If he even saw a balloon in the first place, I do not like the sound of it. It is very bad for business. I have a good mind to sue the land of Bohemia. If you attack us, we will fight back. It will be war. Hold out war. By the way, can I get another balloon? Here you go. Thank you. What happened to all our war? If everybody gets a balloon, everybody will be fine. Mr. Loon certainly doesn't appear to be lying, but that doesn't change the fact that the testimony and evidence are contradictory here. If the defense is unable to find fault with the witness's statements, the court must consider them the truth. Think long and hard on that, my learned friend. The situation has clearly changed now. I have to get to the bottom of what happened here, no matter what it takes. Counsel, you may now cross-examine the witnesses. Oh, I need water. Dang it. Hold on, chat. I'll be right back. I'm gonna get a refill of water because my throat is getting parched. BRB. I got my water and I'm back. I hope everybody else is having a good time. Alright, as I said, balloon is no liar. Every balloon I had in the sky landed safely. You couldn't just have forgotten one, maybe? Signor. I might not notice if I was given 100 lentils and one was missing. But we are talking about 3 enormous balloons. Do you believe I could make a mistake about something so grande and expensive? I take the liberty of having Inspector Gregson check this gentleman's warehouse. I have the report here. It clearly states a total of 3 balloons. It would appear no mistake has been made then. Surely Miss Lestrade could have been sent for such a menial task. What, me? I'll tell you what I told the boss. East End kids like me can only count up to 2. Obviously that ain't true, but the boss bought it and said he had to go himself in that case. Wow, way to get yourself out of counting. All 3 of my balloons were carrying passengers. If they fell to the ground in an explosion, what a catastrophe. It would be quite a catastrophe if they fell to the ground for any reason, I think. On that note, Mr. Loon, tell me, what is it that keeps these balloons in the sky? Are you an idiota? Sorry? That is like asking, why does a candle burn bright? It burns bright because it burns bright. And a balloon flies because it flies. What else? That must be Italian for I don't know. There are 2 types of flying balloons. Hot air balloons and gas balloons. Hot air balloons work on the principle of hot air being less dense than cold air. Whereas gas balloons derive their lift by using a gas that is lighter than air. See, and my balloons are filled with a magic gas, I believe. Hydrogen. Lighter than air, but highly explosive. Good lord. I do not permit smoking of the cigarettes in any of my balloons. The magic gas does not like fire. Even a small spark of static electricity could cause the entire balloon to explode. So don't do laundry before you go on a balloon, okay, everybody? Make sure you don't have static electricity from your dryer. What is the matter with you, Signor? All that comes out of your mouth is explosion, explosion. I tell you, my balloons are perfectly safe. They have to be, or I cannot eat. None of my balloons exploded that day, I'm completely sure. But if you still say that is what happened, you must show me the proof. Alright, so Mr. Loon had 3 balloons in the air that day. If none of them were damaged, then what was the one that exploded? Exploded. But you can't get away from the fact that a burnt up bit of cloth was found at the scene, can ya? I was surprised to find a piece of fabric still at the scene, actually. Didn't you search the area surrounding the stage for clues? Nah, I'm not into picking stuff up off the ground, me. Always works out way better diving into people's pockets instead. So much for the new career path. Mind you, the boss was on his hands and knees picking up all kinds of rubbish from the floor. Thing is, though, the cage went crashing into the crystal tower, didn't it? So that's where most of the investigating was going on. Even so, I would have thought someone from Scotland Yard would have gathered it up as evidence. Cool, listen to you. You stumble across a bit of balloon and suddenly you're the best investigator in the world. Pardon? Well, you ain't got a badge, have ya? Like this one. I could arrest you with this if I wanted to. I wouldn't put it past her. Come to think of it, there was talk of some scorching on the ground in a meeting we had about the investigation. The coppers at the yard reckon it was probably some debris thrown from the explosion on the stage. There was considerable damage to the stage and surrounding area, wasn't there? Yeah, some of the coves what were watching the experiment were caught in the blast and injured. Good job the old contraption didn't need keel over, eh? I hadn't even considered that. It seems there was great panic after the incident occurred. Nevertheless, the police shouldn't have missed a torn piece of the envelope from a balloon. Inspector Gregson can expect repercussions. Oh no, the gumshoe effect. Like me swiping all his fish and chips, eh? The man's sole pleasure. None of this matters. That scrap of balloon envelope means nothing. Niente. This stupido ragazzo is mistaken. My balloons have the red and blue zigzag stripes anyway. You mean the color is wrong? Si, signor. I do not have any green balloons in my warehouse. And yet a piece of green cloth was found at the scene, and it's unmistakably from a balloon. Well, I do not know how that can be. For the sake of argument, let's say that a green balloon did explode above the stage. You couldn't therefore conclude that it happened on the day in question. Why not? There have been recreational balloon flights over Hyde Park operating from before the Great Exhibition. One could have exploded on some earlier date. Unfortunate, as I'm sure you agree. You believe it may have been from some earlier balloon accident that predates the exhibition? Si, exactamente, as the signor says, it is not from one of my balloons. Clearly, this little ragazzo from Bohemia is mistaken about what he saw. Oh.
Excuse me.
This Bohemian prince is about to kill him. Is something wrong, Master Gotts? Is Master Wilhelm Gottfried Sigismund? It was on the tip of my tongue. Yeah, something is very wrong. I know what I saw. There was a green balloon there. I swear it. I swear it all over Bohemia. You can speak as much bad language as you like, but it changes nothing. Balloon, please. If you do not have evidence, ragazzo, then I must tell your parents to punish you, eh? Perhaps we'll let the judge decide when it comes to punishments. Evidence? What is this evidence? To give a simple explanation, young man. A photograph, for instance, some tangible proof of what you claim. Well, why didn't you say so sooner? I have the photograph here. Good gracious. What? I had not been up in a balloon for a little while, so I was very excited. Oh my goodness, he actually brought a camera. Where did that come from? We've never seen... Oh, wait. Wait, do you see his balloon? Look at his buttons. He has very smiley buttons. Can I get smiley buttons? I want smiley buttons. Those are cute. I took lots and lots of photographs of the Crystal Tower, of the Bohemian exhibit, of the streets of London, of the hot eel cellar, the balloon. And the instantaneous kinesis experiment? Did you take a picture of that? Yeah, one picture. Really? You did take one? But all I wanted was a riding balloon. I was not interested in boarding experiments. Never mind that, can you show us that photograph? Of course, and then you will see. You will see that I'm not lying. That I really did see a green balloon. Whoa. That's a very detailed photograph. Also, there's no color. Well, I see you're all too shocked to speak. Yes, I think shocked is indeed the word, young man. Yeah, perhaps you cannot see that it was a green balloon from this photograph, but that is not my fault. That is the fault of the stupid person who made the camera. Ah! That is one very Bohemian sounding cry. Very well, the crow will accept this photograph as evidence. It's just a big I got another balloon after my cry. It's not my fault. It's the person of the person who made the camera. But yeah, look at that shot though. That's a very detailed picture right there. What the heck? You can clearly see the beam go up. Oh wait, the beam was going up this way. And this thing wasn't aiming up. So there's a beam, but he's still there. So what is this beam then? And nobody was in that balloon. Well, never mind. I'm sure you have plenty of wonderful sepia memories to take home with ya. In any case, when exactly did you take that photograph? Well, it was on the day of the big explosion. You don't say. When I pressed the shutter release, there was this very loud bang, and a hot wind rushed over my face. That means this photograph was taken a split second before the explosion occurred. Well, if you ask me, this black and white photograph changes nothing. I could not give the flying fig. Oh, wow. Lovely language you've picked up there. I think he said a no. As I thought, Mr. Loon's testimony just doesn't quite add up. The young bohemian boy claims to have seen another, fourth balloon, but Mr. Loon vehemently denies the possibility. And it's hard to imagine the man in charge could be mistaken about the number that were in the air. Still, this inconsistency must tell us something, I'm sure. Let's see, let's find it out. Fell to the ground, you can't get away from the fact. My balloons have the red and blue zigzag stripes anyway. Oh, but wait, can I present that though? Can I present that because there is no stripe there? I'm gonna try that. I don't see a stripe on that balloon anywhere.
Objection.
Although the way the balloon is shown isn't very good. So it could show a stripe, we just can't see it. That's my first guess right there. That guess was wrong. Okay, let's go back and check. Let's see. You can't get away from the fact that a burned up piece of cloth. All three balloons were carrying passengers. If they fell to the ground in an explosion, what a catastrophe. Every balloon had in the sky landed safely. But yeah, there's just one in the air that's just... it's about to be shot by something, so... where do I present this photo to, then? It has to be from Loon himself, then. Oh, wait! 3 balloons were carrying passengers! Passengers! There was no passengers here!
Objection.
There's no passengers on the balloon! Unfortunately, the photograph Master Gods took can't tell us the color of the balloon, but it can tell us something else. Something crucially important. What? It shows that the picture balloon wasn't carrying any passengers. My goodness, you're right. But surely all the balloons would have been carrying passengers? There would be no sense in it otherwise. See! They are for pleasure, for seeing the view. My balloons only fly with passengers. Sidetracks. Which tells us that the picture balloon isn't one of them, so when the incident occurred that day, there was a 4th balloon in the skies above the experimentation stage. The mysterious green balloon! Squeak. I know nothing. Niente. I can only tell you one thing. If this balloon was not carrying passengers, then it was not one of mine. This balloon is...
Objection.
Engorged. There are illegal tradesmen everywhere you care to look. Clearly one such entrepreneur decided to capitalize on the opportunity presented by the Great Exhibition. And managed to operate balloon flights on Mr. Loon's patch without him realizing. See, the competition trying to steal my profits. I did not notice because of the experimento that went wrong in our stage. This 4th balloon exploded at the very same moment Mr. Asman was beamed from the stage below. Right, so them scraps that fell to the ground after and left them scorch marks, they didn't come from the stage at all. It was bits of the balloon raining down. Because no one was in it, it didn't get no attention. If they wanted profit, why send off a balloon with nobody in it? Because if they see balloon blow up, it will make Mr. Loon lose people. He be losing money. Oh man, this water's so cold still. A mysterious 4th balloon carrying no passengers, silently floating over the experimentation stage.
Objection.
This photograph shows us nothing more. A stray balloon carrying no one and operated by some rogue trader clearly has nothing to do with the case. Its relevance does elude me, I must say. The court has seen sufficient evidence and heard ample testimony already. The prosecution calls for this trial to be concluded. Do they not care? Really? Have we really got to the truth yet? No, I can't let this opportunity slip away. The jurors' minds are made up, and not in our favor. What else can this photograph tell us? Is there nothing more we can learn from it? There's more, though.
Objection.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, wait. Please don't give your decisions yet. The photographer Master Gott may well be hiding one more vital clue. What's that? A vital clue?
Objection.
We're well past the point of mere possibilities. It's time for definitives now, so tell the court. What exactly does this alleged clue in the photograph prove? The cause of the explosion. We can reasonably assume that the picture balloon was destroyed in the searing heat of the explosion. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was not my fault. Evidently. Because the birdcage from the kinesis machine materialized in the sky where it had been flying. And the balloon, being filled with flammable hydrogen, instantly and explosively ignited.
Objection.
No, that's not what happened. What? It would appear that this photograph requires closer examination. Counsel for the defense, you will highlight the location of this alleged clue in the photograph at the court. And I'm just gonna save just in case, make a new file just in case. I have a theory, or I have a reason. Not a theory, but an answer. Of course, my lord. If you look closely, it's plain enough to see, and what's shown is linked to another piece of evidence we have, in a way that leads to an unbelievable conclusion. The clue that heavily suggests the real reason the balloon exploded is... This beam right here, like, because this thing was not aimed up. I was gonna aim at this, but let me aim at the beam. The timing of this photograph can only be described as miraculous. If you look, you'll notice there's a bright white line that appears to point directly at the balloon. Most likely a ray of light caught incidentally on the film. I'm afraid I can see nothing of the sort. If you look with a magnifying glass, my lord, it becomes clear what the nature of this bright line really is. Let's zoom in further. Can we see the bright line now? Goodness, what is that? Undeniably some flash of light, yes. Oh golly, do you think it might be lightning? But it couldn't have been a finer day. I believe we may be looking at fire. A bolt of fire heading straight for the balloon, like an arrow. Or maybe it was your gun. Indeed, even to my aged eyes, it would appear to be a flame of some sort. My word, are you suggesting this flame struck the hydrogen gas that filled the balloon?
Objection.
That's absurd. The balloon would have been 60 feet above the ground at the time. No flame could possibly have reached such a height.
Objection.
Actually, it's my opinion that a particular piece of evidence found at the scene reveals how that exactly is what did happen. What evidence? The crossbow! If such evidence exists, counsel, then for goodness sake, present it, man. Which evidence explains this mysterious streak of flame that appears to be headed directly for the balloon? Crossbow! This was found hidden at the foot of a small ornamental tree near the scene. Good lord, is that a crossbow? An arrow dipped in oil and set alight could have been shot from this weapon, sending a flaming arrow straight into the hydrogen-filled balloon. Are you suggesting that crossbow was used to deliberately... Blimey, you're right. That streak of light in the photo looks just like an arrow, doesn't it? Then, the explosion of the balloon, it was... very likely the result of a flaming arrow from this crossbow igniting the hydrogen gas inside it. No! Wait, it's rare where he actually takes damage like that. It's rare seeing him go like, no! That was smooth. Council, this is an extraordinary supposition. If the aim was to cause the balloon to explode, the shooter could have used a gun, of course. However, there's an obvious reason why that would have been out of the question. The noise of the discharge? Of course. That's right. By using the crossbow, the projectile could be fired at the balloon silently. Well, yeah, if someone had shot a gun off in the exhibition grounds, it would have caused a real panic. But with the big explosion, there was a very big panic anyway, no? I don't like this. I should be pleased to have found a plausible new explanation for all this, but something feels wrong.
Objection!
Do you understand the implications of what you're saying, my Nipponese friend? If a flaming arrow did indeed hit the balloon, then obviously it would have exploded. And if the birdcage appeared from the cloud of smoke that ensued... What? Wait a minute, what are you really saying here? I don't get it. What? Was the birdcage beamed up into the sky after all? Or... what? My goodness me. Oh, now I understand. That's what that sinking feeling is about. Was the explosion to fake the experiment? I think there's a good chance that the birdcage was actually concealed inside the balloon all along. Oh. What? Did I just hear that correctly, Council? There's no going back now. The horse has bolted. Holy flip, let's assume, as I said, that the birdcage was hidden inside the green balloon from the start. On stage, when the experiment was started, the birdcage and the instantaneous kinesis machine disappeared in a cloud of smoke. At that moment, the flaming arrow was fired from the ground, causing the green balloon to explode and drawing the attention of the spectators to the sky above their heads. From amid the smoke, the hidden birdcage then appeared, to fall down and crash into the crystal tower. I think you all agree it's entirely plausible. What I just described is the real truth behind the miraculous experiment carried out that day. Good grief! Holy flip, what a twist! This is ludicrous. What you described is no science experiment. It's child's play. A contemptible display of stage magic. No, but there is an inconsistency. Explain how he teleported then. How did he go from the stage to the balloon then? But can I go on with this and win anyway? We'll lose? This makes me look worse, doesn't it? Both Mr. Sholmes and Iris said that the experiment was a scientific impossibility. In which case, this is the only way to explain what happened that day. And in any case, the victim's body was found inside the birdcage in the crystal tower. If the instantaneous kinesis did take place, how do you explain that? If I may put in a word, as a man of magic myself, such apparent discrepancies can be easily explained by some simple deception. Juror number 3? All that would be needed is a doppelganger, someone who looked very similar to the victim, Mr. Asman, and having this other man appear on stage to front the show as a body double. Yes, of course. So in fact, Mr. Asman must have been inside the birdcage that was concealed inside the balloon right from the start.
Objection!
That balloon would have been filled with hydrogen. Anything hidden inside would have been scattered to 4 winds when it exploded. No one would ever have embarked on such a risky venture. Not necessarily. The explosive force of the balloon gas would very much depend upon the mixture ratio. Juror number 4? Flying balloons are rarely filled with pure hydrogen, but a mixture of other gases such as helium as well. Helium on its own doesn't explode, but by controlling the gas mixture ratio, the explosive force can be altered. The mixture ratio? And welcome to science class, where Von Seeks is learning about science for the first time in his life. Obviously, the victim's body would have suffered some burns. That would be unavoidable. But not to such an extent as to render this whole obscene charade impossible. Ratioed? Gee, thanks. So everything that happened can be explained, logically and scientifically. The explosion that engulfed the stage at the start of the experiment was no accident. It was all part of an elaborate deception to make it appear that instantaneous kinesis had occurred. Well, goodness me. And if we accept that this is what happened, it means that the victim, Mr. Asman, was never present on the public stage to begin with. Ugh. In short, he couldn't have been killed by the defendant, who was on stage in full view the entire time. No! What is that? What is that, like, fabulous way he took damage? This will be very hard for the prosecution to counter. Lord Von Teeks can't credibly maintain that Professor Harebrain is a sus now. Uh-oh. Oh no. Mr. Naruhodo, I appreciate your efforts, thank you. Professor? But you can stop now. Just keep your mouth shut, please. Sorry? What's all this about, Mr. Harebrain? I, Albert Harebrain, hereby confess that it was me who stabbed Mr. Odiasman. Yes, it was me, with my faithful friend and partner, Andrew the Screwdriver. What's he doing? What are you doing? Order! Defendant, explain the sudden confession. Professor Harebrain, what are you talking about? It's what I said all along. I must protect my hypothesis and my precious machine. You stand there and claim it was all a trick, all an elaborate prank, but where's your proof? No, you have to examine the machine if you wanted to prove it, but then it will be over. My beautiful hypothesis will be laid bare. I mean, the indignity of it all. It's clear that you drew the plans for the experiment, but you didn't actually build it. It's quite conceivable that you were duped, Professor. If you'll just let me, I can... Barrick? Yes? I'll cooperate. I'll do whatever you say. I swear it. So please, ensure the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act is adhered to and protect my creation. I really hope he pours that and says, no. Pray forgive the discourtesy of filling my hallowed chalice at this critical juncture. Here's to my learned Nipponese friend. What? And his upcoming attempt to clarify the defense's position in the light of the accuser's confession? Do you intend to formally assert that the experiment was nothing more than a conjuring trick? Because the moment you do, the special act that protects the professor's invention will cease to apply. The prosecution will then demand a rigorous examination of the machinery involved in order to establish the truth. However, if you acknowledge that the machine is genuine and instrumental in the victim's murder, any chance of investigating will be crushed and the confidentiality of the professor's hypothesis preserved. Well, counsel, what is the defense's official position on this matter? What Professor Harebrain, my client, actually asked of me was to prove that the explosion on stage was an accident and protect the secrecy of his hypothesis. But there's no way to do that without implying the professor's guilt. Do I protect my client's life by asserting his innocence? Or do I hold my client's request but see him condemned? Either way, I can't avoid betraying his trust. You've been silent long enough. Isn't talking your trade, my learned friend? Or has all knowledge of English escaped your confused and Nipponese mind? Mr. Naruhodo, there's no escape here. I have to make a choice. But it's an impossible one. I have to give up on something. But what? The defense asserts that the defendant's instantaneous kinesis machine was in fact a conjuring trick. What, it doesn't matter? No, I can't say it. My client places faith in me. I can't just let him down. What must they give up on is not the question you have to ask yourself here. It's what can I protect? Maya? Maya! I mean, Susato! It's Susato! Oh, she's real and not fake and she's back! That's great! Hello again, Mr. Naruhodo. It's been far too long. Susato-san! What hey, oh! My first Susato takedown in 6 months. There'll be time to talk later, Mr. Naruhodo. For now, we must concentrate on the task at hand. Which is working now, not what I have to give up on, but what I can protect. So she really just got in here and somehow... So, she got in here, got through all the security. I'm pretty sure she Susato takedown... She did the takedown on everybody, though. She did the Susato takedown on everybody. All everybody to get in here right now. And somehow got behind me. While I wasn't paying attention. Where did she come from? Where did she go? Where did she come from? Susato-san. Yes? Yesterday, you told me that science is the pursuit of truth. Well, my job is to pursue the truth too. Yes, of course. And personally, I believe that you didn't stab Mr. Asman. I think you've come to realize something yourself too, haven't you? That your experiment and the machine you built with the victim are questionable. The truth behind that is what we must both pursue now. Ah! Oh boy. Someone died again. So you finally opened your eyes. What? And as for you, Albert, you can't ignore this any longer. Haven't heard my learned friend's assertion. Don't you have something to say? But, Barak. Lord Von Zeeks? Gosh, I've never heard him speak that way before. You just got here. In truth, there is one thing. Something I've remembered that's of relevance. What? On the day it happened, just before I began the experiment, I saw a man near the stage. A man holding that crossbow. I beg your pardon? Okay. Professor, did the man have any distinguishing features? What did he look like? Taller than me, and thinner than me, with straight hair, straighter than me, and wider than mine. Let me see, one less lens than me too, a monocle, a rather stylish black monocle. But one thing in particular will help to positively identify the man. You see, I know him very well. After all, he's the engineer who built my invention. What? He built the machine? That's right. Mr. Asman introduced him to me a year ago. Chat, this is getting crazy. He's a man by the name of Enoch Drebber. Enoch Drebber. Enoch Drebber? Does this name mean something? Members of the jury seem flustered. Not a name any scientist wishes to hear. The man's an abomination. Not a name any conjurer wishes to hear either. Who on earth is he? I'm afraid this isn't the first tale of this nature that I've heard in scientific circles in connection with that name. There's talk of other flamboyant experiments that turn out to be nothing but staged trickery in the end. Obviously, the rascal was after the government's research grant money. When magicians are in need of money, I have heard of them resorting to these underhand tactics. Some acquaintances of mine with experience of such things I've mentioned Enoch Drebber's name before. The man is both an engineer and a magician. Yes, we're dealing with an unparalleled, confident trickster here. So we're doing Apollo Justice. The wizard who disappeared be like, bye bye. Good theme song, by the way. Well, that's Enoch Drebber for you. So Enoch Drebber is a infamous guy that no one should know, but he does know. So it's true then, my invention, my great machine, it was just a grand illusion? Considering what we just heard about Mr. Drebber's character, I'm sorry to say that sounds increasingly likely. Even though no one else believed it, I wanted to. I wanted to believe that machine will function exactly as my hypothesis predicted. Which is why you were so opposed to it being investigated, I presume. I knew that if the machine was examined in detail, its construction would give away my hypothesis. Obviously, I didn't want that to happen. But at the same time, I knew that if it was found to be nothing more than a trick, than a work of deception, then everything I'd worked towards, all my research, all my dreams, my whole life would be over. I was terrified at the prospect. So you really had no idea then, did you? About the true nature of the machine that was built, and the true nature of Mr. Drebber. I never questioned anything. I didn't want to question it. It's entirely possible that Mr. Asman and Mr. Drebber were working together to use you as a means of fraudulently acquiring the research grant money. Aw, poor guy. When I announced my invention to the crowds that day, it was the finest moment of my career. I pulled all the levers and turned all the dials in exactly the way Drebber had described. When the smoke suddenly started billowing out, I panicked. I didn't know what was happening. But I really don't know how the whole illusion was made to work. I don't know anything anymore. Dang, this is sad. Let me confirm one final point with you, Professor. Do you now consent to the prosecution submitting the necessary paperwork to release your invention from the protection afforded by the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act? Yes. Please go ahead. I'm very sorry. It would appear that we shall have to suspend proceedings for the remainder of the day now. Lord Von Zeeks? My lord? The court has newly been made aware of another party whose involvement in this matter is critical. Yes, Mr. Drebber. Gather information about the man. If possible, I should like him served with a subpoena. With pleasure, my lord. Now, counsel for the defense. Yes, my lord. When we reconvene, I shall be looking for one thing and one thing alone from you. Evidence that the defendant is innocent of the crime for which he presently stands accused. Presently, wow. Even though I can read, I can't read well today. I don't know what's going on with me today. I understand. Good. In that case, this court is adjourned until tomorrow morning. But dang, this case is going crazy. It's a big sheesh moment. But she's back. She's back. Susato-san is back. She's back. She's back. She's back. She's back. She's back. She's back. Mr. Naruhodo. Yes. I'm I'm so sorry. I was wrong, you were right, I tricked you, you trusted me, I dragged you into my mess. Oh, how did it ever come to this? I'm so sorry. Did you really have no idea, Professor? About what Mr. Drebber was really up to, I mean? About what he was really constructing? Naturally. That machine was the embodiment of my hypothesis, of all my hopes and dreams. I had complete faith in it. Alright. In that case, I won't say any more. Now, sadly, the murder accusation against you still stands. So we must do as much investigation as we can before the trial resumes tomorrow. Well, thank you for doing so much for me. I'm so sorry for arriving late this morning, Miss Anadahodo. Arriving late? Didn't you receive my postcard? I wanted to let you know when I arrived. Postcard? What postcard? I hid it from you, Runo, so it will be a surprise. Well, did it work? I was surprised, alright, especially when she threw me to the ground. Oh dear, I'm so sorry. I was just so happy to see you again that it sort of just slipped out. How do you slip out a takedown? Sorry, throwing you was a slip up. Sorry. Maybe we could stick to more traditional displays of emotion in future. Hugs, high fives, elbow bumps, nose pecks, penguin kisses. That's how. No, that's not. No, how do you like when you touch noses with each other? Who does that? Susie's train was late into London Victoria this morning, you see, but we made the coachman really whip the horse's heart so she didn't miss the whole trial. I was watching from the gallery for a while, but in the end, I'm afraid I couldn't contain myself. I jumped over and helped. Well, I'm glad you didn't. Oh, having you on my side in court gives me the strength I need to win. So, I'm delighted to see you back in London. Oh, you're too kind, Miss Anadahodo. I'm delighted to be here. I don't know what's going on. I think my allergies are coming in. Hold on. After we get to the to be continued thing, I'm gonna take a freaking allergy medicine, and then we'll be right back. I hope I can continue to be of service to you. Of course. So, what's brought you back? Did Professor Mikotoba not protest? Let's save all that conversation for when we're back at home, shall we? You know, I've made one of my most special blends ever for this special occasion. Oh, Iris, how wonderful. I can't wait. And now she's back. We're a flippin' team again. Susato-san was back in London. It's hard to describe how happy that made me feel at the time, but despite my elation, our tale was about to take yet another extraordinary turn. Another person died. Right. To be continued. Ah. Oh, this room, it's been too long. It hasn't changed in the slightest, though. And it's been 6 months, hasn't it? That's a long time for things to stay so familiar. I didn't know when you might return, and I wanted everything to be as you left it. But it has been some 6 months, it's true. So is your father alright, Susie? What happened? My father? Yes, Professor Mikotoba. I mean, it was half a year ago, but that's why you went back to Japan. Because of the telegram you received saying he'd fallen ill with a very high fever. For some reason. That's right. So I was surprised to learn you'd be coming back so soon. Surprised, but happy. I think I wrote about it in my letter to you, that it was all a trick. My father is in fine health, and I'm obviously very relieved about that. Well, we're all delighted to have you back. It was quite by accident that I've been able to return to Europe, actually. It's because of a very grand conference called the International Forensic Science Symposium. The International Forensic? That's the same symposium Lord Strongheart mentioned. Anyway, I've arrived safe and sound, and all that matters is that I'm here now. After all, I haven't yet fulfilled my promise to you, Iris. Oh. You must tell us everything that happened while you were back in Japan. Yes, of course, I shall. And there's one other thing. Something you wrote in your letter that particularly grabbed my attention. About you know who. About Kazuma. I know. I'll tell you all that I can. First, would you like to see my armband? You're still taking good care of that armband, I see. I'm so pleased. Well, yeah, it feels like I wouldn't be me without it now, to be honest. Oh dear, there seems to be a thread coming loose just there, look. I'd be only too happy to mend it for you, Mr. Naruto, though. Oh, thank you. I must have scraped it against something again. I'm always doing that. Then take better care of it, please. It was all going so well until I ruined it. Imagine it just rips apart like, oh, sorry. When I first arrived back in Japan, I really thought I'd never be allowed to return to Britain. But curiously, after that awful trial at the Supreme Court, Father's mood changed entirely. The awful trial? Oh yeah, for the murder of Giselle Brett. Ooh, you dressed as a man then, didn't you, Susie? Oh, well, yes. Since women are forbidden in the courtroom, I had no choice. Wow, amazing. I wish I'd seen it. Don't you, Runo? Yes, I suppose so. I want to play at being a lawyer now. I could wear a false mustache, maybe. I don't think any mustache could hide the fact that you're just 10 years old, Iris. I mean, didn't Franziska von Kramer start at 13? Right? She was 13, right, when she started. Everybody starts out young, so yeah, Iris being a 10-year-old lawyer wouldn't be any crazier. There's something else I've been wanting to ask you, Mr. Sato. It's about the real reason why Professor Mikotoba summoned you back to Japan. You said in your letter it was something to do with that convict's loot we found in Mr. Natsume's lodgings. That's right. The very large dog collar we found with the bee emblem on it. Wait, bee. Bohemian? No. It seems Mr. Natsume included a drawing of the collar in the support he was submitted about his time in Britain. I understand that when Father saw the report, he turned as white as a sheet. Why would that be then? Father came to Britain himself, of course, to study. It was some time ago now, but he stayed for 6 years. I can only imagine that something must have happened during that time. But if he refuses to tell me what it was, then I intend to find the answers for myself. And I've decided that I, for one, won't keep any more secrets. Oh, Susie. That's a very meaningful look Susato-san's giving Iris there. Forensic Science Symposium. Lord Strongheart mentioned something about the symposium too. I think he said that investigative authorities from 40 different countries would attend. Yes, I'm from Japan. My father and Judge Jigoku have been invited. It's something of an honor, I believe. Well, Professor Mikotoba is the leading expert in forensic medicine in our country after all. But who's the other person you mentioned? A judge, did you say? Yes, His Excellency Judge Seishiro Jigoku. You've met him, Mr. Naruhodo. Last year in the Supreme Court. You can't possibly have forgotten. That terrible trial of yours when you were accused of murder? Ah, yes, I tried to think of that as a positive turning point in my life these days. Well, it was Judge Jigoku who presided over that trial. If I'm perfectly honest, I'd be happy never to see that man's face again in my life. Oh, well, anyway, as Father was invited to the symposium, he agreed to me returning to Britain too. He won't actually arrive until next month, but, well, I couldn't wait. So I pleaded with him, and in the end, he agreed to me going on ahead. Yes, about the symposium. It seems as though Lord Strongheart has put in an awful lot of work to make it happen. It's obviously very important. I believe it is, yes. As I understand it, Lord Strongheart organized the entire event himself. I think he's hoping that by achieving exceptional results, he'll get the job of Attorney General, the most senior position in the British justice system. He's hoping to use his power to create the world's finest policing institution. That's what Father said anyway. Apparently, it's Lord Strongheart's lifelong ambition. Does Professor Mikotoba know Lord Strongheart personally then? I wonder. Actually, Lord Strongheart gave me a long speech all about this very subject only yesterday. But I sort of lost the will to live early on and didn't really listen to much of it. I'll try for you. Basically, I just said I died. Jezile Brett. The woman whose unforgivable actions ended in me being wrongly accused of a crime I didn't even commit. The murder of Dr. John H. Wilson. Yes, Jezile Brett. That's a name I won't forget for as long as I live. Bird Lady. The extraordinary thing is, though, it seems it's a name we should all forget. Sorry? Since the incident, our government's intelligence services have been investigating Miss Brett. But it turns out that an Englishwoman by the name of Jezile Brett didn't actually exist. Didn't exist, but how can that be? It was a pseudonym. Her real name was Shin, and she wasn't a visiting student either. That was a front. A front? Wait, who on earth was she then? Miss A. Shin. Miss Asian. Miss Asian. Her name is literally all our intelligence services have been able to ascertain about her. Nobody knows why or even how she came to be in Japan. It's a complete mystery. But that makes no sense. It's no easy task to be accepted as a foreign student anywhere. What could the woman have been up to? I'm afraid I really don't know. The only thing we can be sure of is that she had some business in our country that we don't yet understand. And now she's been killed, while all the questions surrounding her existence remain unanswered. I'm afraid so. A. Shin. Who on earth was she? Miss A. Shin. And why do I feel as though I've heard that name before somewhere? Wait. At the end of the first game, weren't they reading off names and was Miss A. Shin was at the end of them? After my friend Ray's trial, the reporter who actually killed Miss Brett said something very strange. Oh yeah, that guy. Many Memo. I know the truth. I know you had a hand in what went on in that visiting student's fate. Nobody here in Japan knows anything about it. They don't know that the guy never made it to England, that he died on that steamship, and that he'll never. Obviously, I couldn't ask him to elaborate at the time. But later, I visited the man in his prison cell and asked him what he was going to say about Kazuma-sama. And what did you learn? After he died on the voyage to Great Britain, his body should have been unladen at the port of Hong Kong and passed into the care of the consulate staff there. Should have been. Well, it turns out that his body never arrived. It just... What? Kazuma's body vanished? Our government tried to cover the fact up, it seems. They erected a grave on the cliffs by our hometown. Except Kazuma-sama isn't there. What the? This is messed up. Did Professor Mikotoba know about this? Yes, it would seem that he did. But no body. Kazuma's not dead. And who is that guy in the office? Cloaked up in there. But he didn't tell me. They're still investigating what happened to Kazuma-sama's body as we speak. I just don't believe it. And what is this acute feeling of apprehension I have all of a sudden? Thinking back now, some of the things that happened on the SS Burya were definitely strange. Kazuma's evil twin, Amuzak. I mean, after he died, we never saw his body again, did we? Could it be? Could it be that he's actually still alive? Stop it, Mr. Naruhodo. It's too much to bear. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Just thinking about the possibility pains me so very much. Cast your mind back for a moment. Mr. Naruhodo. When Kazuma-sama was discovered, Mr. Sholmes was there, wasn't he? And he definitely examined the body. I remember it clearly, unless he's in on it. Unless Mr. Sholmes is already in on it. You're right. So if Kazuma hadn't actually been dead at all, it would mean that Mr. Sholmes had lied to us. But there's no reason why he would possibly have done such a thing. He's been hiding a lot of stuff from us, so who knows? I suppose that's true, yes. The idea that he might still be alive somewhere. It wants to fill me with hope, but I can't let it because if it turned out not to be true, then I'd be back at the bottom of that awful pit of despair again. I'm terrified of what that might do to me. Oh, Miss Usato. I know she's given the idea the thought it deserves. It's Usato-san we're talking about after all. So I probably shouldn't push it now. Ugh. That is crazy. I never would have thought about that. So wait, what's up? Why are we still here? Why are we not going anywhere else right now? About this paper, Miss Usato. Yes, it's all about the great exhibition. I've been dreaming about it, you know? I was sorry that you were gonna miss it when you were called back to Japan. So was I. I felt desperately unlucky. But here I am, back in London while it's underway. It's a dream come true. Perhaps you're not as unlucky as you thought then. Once we help Professor Harebrain out of this terrible situation, we should all explore together. And of course, we must invite the Professor's good friend Lord Von Zieks as well. Your luck might not be stretched that far. Let's see, do I show her anything else? Do you want to see the photograph? Miss Usato, do you see this? You have such great expectation in your eyes, Mr. Naruhodo, but I'm afraid nothing particularly useful comes to mind at all. Oh, sorry, I'm not sure what I was expecting, really. You want to meet Andrew? Okay, I guess she doesn't want to meet Andrew then. Okay. Andrew doesn't want to know you either. You might just need to leave. That would be a good idea, except I don't have the move option. I don't have the move option. Do I have to examine something? Oh. Examine her. Examine her. Goki. It must be about a year ago now. I wrote a really long story based on some of my father's old notes. It's about one of Hurley's greatest exploits. I called it The Hound of the Baskervilles. But then Mr. Sholmes forbade you from publishing it and put the manuscript somewhere nobody could get their hands on it. So nobody knows anything about it apart from Hurley and I. But for some reason, you knew the title of it, didn't you, Susie? Oh, it sounds so exciting. The Hound of the Baskervilles. I should love to read it. And you wouldn't tell me. How'd you come to know it? Yes, but I made you a promise that I would explain one day, didn't I? I think it's time. Oh. Oh. I'm only sorry I've had to keep it from you for so long, Iris. It was completely by accident that I came to know the title of your manuscript, Iris. It was a short while before we left Japan. I was cleaning Father's study and I saw something on his writing desk. A large box of papers. There was a label affixed to the box that was written in English. It read, The Hound of the Baskervilles. What? My Baskerville story? Of course, I had no idea what it was at the time. But Father came in and... Susato, what are you doing? Oh, Father, did you look at those papers? No, I simply read the label, that's all. Well, put it out of your mind. Sorry? Forget that you ever saw it and certainly don't tell anybody else about this. Do you understand? What? What? But what was Iris's manuscript doing in Japan? I have no idea. But when I heard Iris mention the word Baskerville that day, the title just slipped out. I would never have guessed that it was an unpublished account of one of Mr. Strom's exploits. When I returned to Japan, I've asked Father to explain, but he refused to answer any of my questions, and there was no sign of the big box in his office. That's really all I know about it. I have no doubt that Father has a very good reason for being so secretive about it, but still. I made up my mind to explain myself to both of you. Well, thank you for being so honest, Susie. Oh. At least now we know, but wow. So, Mr. Naruhodo, I'm ready to start investigating if you are. I've committed every detail about the case to memory. And Iris has told me about the disturbing happenings at the Waxwork Museum as well. So you're fully abreast of the situation already, Mr. Sato. I'd expected nothing less, to be honest. I would think our first port of call should be to investigate this Mr. Drebber, the engineer responsible for building the elaborate machine that was used to effect this extraordinary trick. Yes, a conjurer of sorts by the sound of it, well known in the fields of science and magic. Then we need to go and arrest him. Well, yes. He must know the truth behind this case, so I agree we really need to find the man. It sounds like it's a case of tracking someone down. Which is a job for the police or a great detective. Are we supposed to guess who she might be thinking of? We don't have much time, so we need to get started straight away, I think. Good idea. Well, best of luck then. Oh, you're not coming today? I'm going to Brixton Road shortly for the herb market. But let me know later how you got on, won't ya? Bye, Iris. That was a little abrupt. The pull of the herb market must be strong. Everybody loves the herb market. Well, with that, I'm going to end the stream here for tonight. I feel like there'll be more to do next time. But to everybody who came on tonight, thank you for coming to my stream. I hope you all enjoyed yourselves. Before we disappear, how about we do a small trade if we can? I think I know somebody who's the... Oh, here we go. We can go check out my friend Colby, who is also playing Great Ace Attorney too. So feel free to check him out, show him my love, and I will catch you all next time. Until then, adios everybody. Have fun. Bye-bye.